In today's practice, we're going to work our way up from the floor to standing, and this will take us about half an hour. And then once we've done this, I'll leave you to choose how to conclude your practice. So I'm going to leave it open to you once you reach that point of the practice, but starting as you might expect, lying down or sitting. If this doesn't feel comfortable, you can bring your feet onto the mat and the arms out alongside and just start to find the breath. Inhaling and exhaling all the way up to the crown of the head and all the way down. When you're ready, stretching the legs out and then bringing the feet to the floor again. Just adjust anything you need to. Maybe moving the hands to the ribs, noticing the extension into the side body here. Slowly taking the arms up over the head. Imagining perhaps you're holding a beach ball or a box, whatever suits you. Stretching up into the air and then releasing them back down. Bringing the hands into a diamond shape over the belly button and lifting them up over the head, working into the shoulders. Draw the elbows out, release the fingers to a cactus, so at 90-degree angles. And then bringing the hands back up, fingers meeting again in that diamond shape and releasing down to the belly. Just taking a few of these movements, just noticing how everything feels for you today. And then, in your own time, taking some windscreen wiper legs, dropping the knees to one side and then the other. And perhaps flexing through the feet, lifting the heels. Again, just noticing how the ankle mobility is for you today. And in your own time, we'll take some pelvic tilts. So drawing the belly button down towards the knees and then up towards the chest. Again, all of this is just awareness building, which is such a key principle in our yoga practice. You might like to come into a twist. So taking one leg over the other and releasing down. And you can stay with this for quite a while if you like. This is a yin, more of a yin posture where you might hold this for a long time. You could support underneath the legs with a bolster. Really noticing how the hip feels here. Then coming back to the centre and then taking that in the opposite direction. And then drawing the knees in, holding behind the thighs, or perhaps on the shins. You can rock side to side, you can rock back and forward, it's really up to you. Just mobilising the lower back a little bit. And you might like to do one leg in, the other arm up in the air. You might like to just do one leg at a time. This is Uppanasana. These are our joint oiling postures. And you know, not every teacher teaches in the same way, quite obviously. But I really enjoy taking time when I have it to do this stretching work, to do this mobilising work and supporting my body as much as I can. And then just take the arms up into the air, stretching out the shoulder blades once more before we come on to the side and make our way up to seated. So coming to seated now and doing some rounding the spine and giving yourself a hug. So it's essentially like doing a cat-cow, but just maybe imagining you're like a bird spreading its wings, and then you're just giving yourself a hug. From here, coming into a twist, so taking one arm out or up and then bringing it across the opposite leg. You can do this while you're still sitting there. So taking that on one side and then taking it on the opposite side. Stir the pot. So you take the legs wide and then you take the arms out in front of you. Just imagine you're stirring a great big pot. Will come into an open twist. So you can either keep your legs out wide for this, or if it's more comfortable, bring one in. You know, there are lots of different ways you can play with it. You can hold the toe as you open your arm up to the sky. To transition from one side to the other, you might like to come through your Baddha Konasana, your bound angle posture, with the feet meeting, holding onto the knees for support. And if you're lucky, you too might be visited by a cat during your practice. So you'll see quite a lot of Olive in this practice. She really just wanted to hang out, as you'll see by her just lying there. So when you're doing these open twists, really imagining that you're drawing the string of that bow back to pull the arrow. And you might like as well to take a little bit of work into the fingers. So all you need to do here is have the palm facing up, and then you, using the hand, draw each finger down. You can support with more than one finger in each hand to make sure that, you know, you're not just drawing the finger back, and if you've got any hypermobility issues, risking that. So you can hold each finger with a couple of fingers from the other hand. And then you might like to even bring the hands behind the head. This is great exercise for just working into the neck and the scalp, rounding down and bringing the elbows in. And then as you come up out of this, you'll open the elbows out, drawing the shoulder blades together, really long spine here. You might also like to take a few shoulder rotations. I find it quite effective for getting into the shoulders to take the arms to shoulder height if that's available to you, and rotate forwards and backwards, trying to keep everything at the same level. And then taking a side stretch, so bringing one hand or perhaps the fingertips down, lifting out through the side of the body. These are called the serratus muscles, these muscles on the long side of the body. And you can really lift up into them. There are lots of different options here, so feel free to take your own. And then come out in a swooping motion around the front to take the pressure off the shoulder. Again, if a cat is visiting you at this point, feel free to just take a moment to give it a stroke. I always think cats are fantastic for mental health, so if you have one, or perhaps you have a puppy who likes to join you, or whoever you have visiting you, incorporate them into your practice as best you can, because they ain't going nowhere. And then from here we're going to make our way onto all fours. So one of my favourite things to do, as you might know if you've practiced it with me, is to do hip circles and really dig in if you feel like there's anything you'd like to focus on, like maybe something feels a bit juicy. You could do figures of 8, you could do side to side, you could even do some cat-cows here, and we'll actually go into those. So rounding the spine and then arching. So you choose what movements you're doing. Now, if you have an anterior tilt to your pelvis, you kind of feel like you tilt forward, you might find cat-cows harder for you to see the rounding of the spine. I know I do. And then from here, we'll come into an inner thigh stretch, keeping one leg exactly where it is. Stretch the other leg out, and you can point the toe or do whatever feels good. And just rock back and forward. So this is both great for the inner thighs, but also checking in with the wrists, making sure they feel happy. And do that on both sides. From here, we'll make our way into Makrasana, Crocodile Posture. So bringing ourselves all the way down onto the front, hands underneath the head, one palm on top of the other. And if you'd like to, you don't have to, but you could take some ankle circles in both directions. If you're anything like me and your clothes just roll about, don't feel like you can't. Readjust whenever you need to. And just playing around a little bit here, so maybe a little bit of Child Balasana or our Locust Posture, where we're going to point the toes and lift the chest, the fingers are pointing back as well. Remember, when you do this, as you lift up, keep the forehead, keep the gaze down to the earth, lengthening through the neck, lengthening through the spine. Squeeze the glutes maybe, really lift up away from the earth. And of course, glamorously, Olive is cleaning herself at the very forefront of the camera, so I hope you're enjoying that. Take as many of these as you like, and then I'm going to invite you to make your way into a Child Balasana. Now, as usual, this will look different for everyone. So I like to bring my forearms down, and I take my knees wide. When I was thinner, I had less on my thighs. I could bring my bottom closer to my heels. As you can see, I'm pretty much 90 degrees now. So you have to find ways to make postures work for you, whatever your body shape, size, whatever your anatomy. And it always will work for you. You just have to find those ways. From here, we'll come into our Ustrasana, our camel posture. So coming up onto the shins, and you feel free to pad. It's very important to pad the knees if you would like to. Take the arms out wide and then bring the hands onto the lower back. Now for me, that's my bottom, so it doesn't look the most glamorous. For you, it might be somewhere else entirely. And taking a couple of these, really lifting up, thinking about lifting before you start to tilt back. So you want to avoid hinging into the lower back because that just puts undue pressure on your sacroiliac area. And as you can probably see, I'm not moving very far, but I'm really stable. I'm pressing forward through my thighs, which can be quite an intense sensation. So feel free to come back to this at another point if that's not working for your muscles. And then you might like to sit down on a blanket between, or even a block or a bolster or anything like that between the heels and the bottom. From here, we're going to come to kneel and make our way to standing. I'll tuck my back toe. I'll put my hands maybe on the thigh or out wide if I want to challenge my stability, my balance. And then I'm going to press up. Now, if there's anything going on with the ankle, of course, feel free to take any other route to standing that you prefer. And we'll all meet together at the top of the mat. Let's come through a sun salutation. So taking the arms up into the air, bending at the hips, at the pelvis, and folding forwards. Coming up into a tabletop spine, and then folding forwards deeply. Step one foot back and then the other. Knees can be down or up, rolling forwards over the shoulders and releasing the body down to the earth. Make your way up into a cobra, and then back either to a downward dog or a child. From here, we'll make our way back into a forward fold. So if you're in a downward dog, you might like to step hands to feet, feet to hands. If you're in a child, you'll probably want to come to kneeling and then find your way up from there. So again, your choice around your movement. And we're going to take a couple of these. So I really want to encourage you to take these at your own pace, to explore things that you want to find more information out about. You might notice things that I do that you don't do. And that's not surprising because that's just bodies. From here, moving into a forward fold. This is our Padottanasana. So here you might like to have some bricks handy. It really depends on if you've got super long arms, if things come easily to the floor. And then when I'm ready and I've decided what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the backs of my hands on there. Now, essentially in this posture, we have two variations. We can hold the toes, which is a great variation. We can put our hands under the feet. Now, putting our hands under the feet is challenging if we don't have particularly long arms. So bricks are fantastic. And then once you've done both, come up to standing. We're going to come into a revolved triangle. So you may well have done a triangle in the past. We're going to do a revolved version. So we step out away from the top of the mat. We take one foot out, one foot facing forwards. And then we stretch forwards and release down. The other arm can either come to the lower back or it can go into the air. We're crossing the body here. In triangle, we go away from the body, we're doing an open twist. And in revolved triangle, we're crossing the body. You can do this on both sides by swiveling the feet. Make sure you lift up into the air and stretch forwards before you come down. This just gives you lots more space in the chest. And we're going to start with a wide leg forward fold. You might like to have bricks here or blocks, depending on how close your hands come to the floor. We're going to bring our palms down onto the floor, again folding at the hips, and take a few stretches through the legs, bending one knee, straightening the other leg. You might like to play around with turning the hands so the fingers face backwards and forwards. Just see what feels good for you. And then we'll come into a twist, so one hand or fist down, opening out in the opposite direction. Take a few of these. You can take as many as you like. This might feel quite nice on the back. To come up, we want to come up carefully. So again, bend the knees a little bit, take the hands to the hips, breathe into the lower back and come up. Really stable. Take a moment. We're going to find a triangle now. So one foot faces forward, the other foot in. Take the arms out, turning the body towards the front leg and bank down into your triangle. Now we're not going to stay here for long. We're going to just flow through a few movements. So we're going to bend the front knee, bring the forearm down onto it and come into a side angle. So you could keep that top arm on the hip. You could take it out over the head, ground down through the outside of the back foot. Keep lightness, keep spaciousness. And then you can reverse it and come into that reverse warrior. Some people call it humble warrior. Lots of different names for it you may have come across. To transition through, why not a goddess? So feet turn out 45 degrees or more, your body. You could have the hands on the hips to start. Again, check in with the stability of that squat. And then bring the hands up and down through the centre of the body, and you can bend and straighten as you move through this. You could even take a twist if you like. Just see how your body feels today. And then we're going to take that flow of movements on the other side, so finding your way into your triangle, adjusting as you go. This is quite a classic flow of movements. You'll often see them sequenced together, just because in yoga we like to counterpose things. So if you go forward, we like to go backwards, just make sure the body feels balanced. If it's not available to have that arm up above the head, which is quite a lot for the arm to do, take it to the hip and keeping that front knee bent as you come into your reverse warrior. Straighten the legs and we'll meet again at the top of the mat. Quite like to do a little bit of a prep before I do balance if I have time. So if you have bricks to hand, you don't understand on both of them, that's not going to help, to be honest, with your balance. You're going to bring one into the centre of the mat and then take one foot up onto it and just let the other leg swing. And this is really working on you lifting up through the arches of the foot that's standing on the brick, and keeping balanced in the pelvis on the side that's swinging. You don't have to do this before you do the next posture. You could do this at any time. You might be able to tell this side a lot harder for me. Absolutely fine. We all have one side that's stronger for balance and not. When you're ready, you can move both bricks out of the way And then find your way into your balance. We're going to do a tree today. So you can have the heel at the ankle. You could have the sole of the foot on the calf or on the inner thigh. It's up to you. You're doing the same work wherever it is. And the hands can meet at the centre of the chest. They could go up above the head. There are loads of different options. Just demonstrating a few. So feel free to just play around. Make some choices. And if you don't feel like today one of them works for you, take something else. You can take 5 breaths here. Now, you might notice my feet turn out a lot. You do not have to copy this. This is just the natural turnout of my feet. And for me, if I turn my feet to face forward, it feels like my knees, and they are going in. So I'd encourage you to work with what feels natural for you and not worry about the visual. That's the main thing I always want to get across, is the visual means nothing. It's how it feels for you. You know, every day as well with balance is a different day. Some days might be fantastic. Some days more of a challenge. And then we'll meet again at the top of the mat. And this time we'll just come through some standing sun salutations. So bending at the knees, taking the arms out to one side, bending at the knees, taking them out the other way, and then bending at the knees and taking both arms out like a bird waving its wings. The feet can be hip distance apart, they could be close together. It's really up to you and your body. This is a standing side stretch. Take the arms up into the air and waving side to side. From here, making our way into our warrior one. And then again, the hands can come to wherever you like. They could be on the hips. They could be up in the air. And we'll flow through into a standing forward fold here. So the arms could go onto the hips, they could go behind the back, fists meeting, and you're going to fold forwards. Movements of the shoulders just to check in. We'll come through that sequence again, so bending at the knees, straightening the legs, coming to the left, coming to the right, coming out both ways. You know, really this is your practice, so encouraging you just to find what works for you. That might be stretching out a little bit in a forward fold. Could be anything. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. And then you're going to find your warrior one on the opposite side. So arms can come up into the air. They could be on the hips. If they're up in the air, imagine you're the queen waving. They're swiveling inwards. And then from here, you'll find that forward fold again. Imagine you're coming back before you go forward, and go over the inner thigh rather than the whole of the leg to prevent the pelvis from twisting. Coming up and then coming into warrior two. You can make this dynamic or static. So by dynamic, I mean just bending and straightening the front leg, foot facing forwards, back foot. When I say in, you can see from my feet, that doesn't always work. It's really, a lot of it is what I'm feeling like I'm doing. And in our warrior two, we can be playful as well. We could take hands to the back of the head and then taking one more wide leg forward fold as you transition to the other side. This time you could have the hands on the hips. I'm going to close this section of the practice with our warrior two, imagining all the energy out through the middle front finger. You could play around with turning the palms up and down, dropping the shoulders. And after this, I'm going to invite you to find the rest of the practice for yourself. So perhaps after this, you might like to find your way to the floor, take some seated postures of your choice, and then come to lie down and take as long as you would like in Shavasana. Taking a few of these on either side. And as you do this, focusing on that feeling. And then we'll come to meet at the top of the mat, and I'll leave you here for the rest of your practice. Thank you for coming to practice with me today, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your afternoon, evening or morning.